All right. Good afternoon. Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome back to Puck Around and Find Out. For those of you who have returned, welcome back. Thank you for joining me. You can see over in the corner, my dog Oki is hiding from us today. But if you're here in the chat, go ahead and drop a hi, Oki. So I know that you're here and you can see the little Doge. Uh, Heck of a weekend in the hockey world last weekend. We had a bunch of really interesting penalties. That's what I'll say, including one against Cutter Bedard. But the thing I wanted to start off today with was the news has been circulating the hockey world, which is over the Athletics ranking, or not necessarily their ranking, but them and the players' rankings of the best owners in the NHL. So I wanted to share that really quick, just go through it, give my thoughts on the owners. So as you can see, they do a breakdown both by team, by fan base, confidence in owner, and then final scores. They have a fan score, which is how do fans feel about their owner, and then the athletic score, which I think is based off of this breakdown of how they've been doing. So number one on the list, Jeff Vinik of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Really interesting to see that Jeff Vinik is the gold standard right now in the NHL for ownership when Tampa Bay's ownership history has been so fraught, so to say. But you can't deny the results. You know, he has turned this team into a perennial winner. 2 Stanley Cups since he's taken over. He's been gauged as one of the most willing to spend. Obviously, organizational stability for a guy who's basically only had 2 GMs and I think 2 or 3 head coaches since he's taken over. Big. I'd love to see owners who are good at treating the fan base and franchise vision. That's very impressive. And yeah, he's the number one owner. Some other people in the top 5 who I'm not surprised by. Vincent Viola, Florida Panthers. Obviously, you just win a cup. Fan base is going to be very happy with you. He did not get a great score from the Athletic, which is surprising. 4.2 compared to Vinik, who got a 4.8. So I think everybody's just considering Vinik to be like the gold standard, whereas Viola, not as much. But the fan score 4.79 is very good as well. Bill Foley, Vegas Golden Knights. I'm surprised that he's not number 2 because, you know, he has been very good at how he's treated the fan base and how he's built a culture of hockey in Vegas. Really surprised that the confidence in owner is not that high. Or actually, no, I'm not. He has very high confidence. Same or higher is basically 100%. So he's very good in that regard. Some others, Tom Gagliardi of the Stars. He's a pretty good owner, but haven't really achieved much. Tom Stillman of the Blues is a really odd one because, you know, they've won a Stanley Cup, but I don't feel like he's necessarily shown that he's incredibly willing to spend. And their organization's kind of in like a standstill right now. So I'm surprised that the Blues fans rated him so highly. Ted Leonsis, not surprising that he's this high. The treatment of the fan base being this low, people brought up the potential move to Arlington a lot. And I think that that's a fair criticism of him. Then Stan Kroenke. I'm not surprised Stan Kroenke. It's surprising that the owner of a team who's won 2 Stanley Cups is this low. It's not surprising when you know that owner is Stan Kroenke, who, if you know how he's run his other businesses, it's pretty bad. Treatment of the fan base, 3.04, is not surprising. Kroenke is notoriously not the best at engaging with his fans. They brought up the fight with cable companies. New guy, Ryan Smith of the Utah Hockey Club, getting a little bit of shine, which I guess it's because Arizona is at least, or he's not Borrello from Arizona. And DeLauer is also surprising, but again, I think that's a little bit of like he's not Dorian. And then the other one in the 10, Tom Dundon, which is really surprising that Tom Dundon of the Carolina Hurricanes gets so much shine and admiration, considering that the players rated his facilities as among the worst. But he's, you know, pretty middle of the pack in willingness to spend, stability and franchise vision. Completely understand why that's good. But the athletic score was pretty low, so that's not surprising at all. So let's go down to the bad ones, the worst of the worst. And we're going to start at number 27, the Ilitch family, the Detroit Red Wings. How the mighty have fallen. Once the owners of Hockeytown, like Steve Ilitch, was like a god in Detroit, and now his kids have just been such massive fuck ups. They've owned the team since '82. You know, they had the reign of Stanley Cups, and now look at them: 31st in willingness to spend, 23rd in organizational stability. Even though Stevie Yzerman's been there for coming upon a decade, I think. Treatment of the fan base so low, franchise vision so low. The Yzer plan obviously not being very well received, lower confidence. The worst, most fans of his team have less confidence in his ability, the Ilitch family's ability, compared to every other team. Less than Terry Pegula, less than some of the other worst owners in the NHL. Incredible. So these are the guys who had bad weekends. John P. McConnell of the Blue Jackets, surprising that he's this low, but I guess he's owned the team for so long and they've just had nothing going for them. Organizational stability being second to last is not surprising considering the absolute shitfest that was Mike Babcock being, hired and fired within a month. And then obviously the entire debacle that was Kekalainen's reign as general manager, franchise vision, and willing to suspend both in the bottom five. Just not a guy who's getting a lot of shine, but the confidence in him is growing, 54% higher, which is one of the highest in the NHL. So Blue Jackets rebuild paying off is starting to give McConnell some better shine this year. The Wirtz family, another very up and down. I remember back when I was younger, the Wirtzes were considered to be like the worst owners in hockey. Then they got Kane, Taves. They had a a huge run for Stanley Cups, or 3 Stanley Cups, and now they have Bedard, but they can't win, and now they're back down. They're actually not like terrible in any category. They're just bottom 5 in willingness to spend, stability, treatment of the fan base, which you never like to see, and confidence in them being so much lower. I'm guessing that's just because Chicago fans are a little bit impatient. They have this generational talent in Connor Bedard, and it seems like his career is, I don't want to say stalling out, but not reaching the levels that people thought that he could be, on that McDavid, Crosby level that people were projecting him to be. And so as a result, the Wirtz family not getting good reviews right now, and they probably won't until they start to turn things around. The Murray Edwards is another one that's surprising given how the Calgary Flames have been performing this year. And it's especially damning when you look at treatment of the fan base and franchise vision being so low. When you're a small market team and you're a team that maybe can't spend as much, you really need to make treatment of the fan base, like you need to make the fan experience as good as possible, in my opinion, especially when you haven't been so good for so long. And the fact that he's third worst in that is really appalling. Same for franchise vision. Obviously, they're kind of just starting a rebuild now. And for me, honestly, I think I like the direction the Flames are going. I think they've got a lot of good young prospects. It's just not bearing fruit right now. And then obviously the big one that I'm sure is going to get mentioned down here is the whole stadium debacle, which they've been threatening to move, trying to move. The Saddle Dome is one of the older arenas. I'm sure that has to do a lot with the terrible fan experience. They need a new rink for sure. And the fact that he's being so cheap and bullying with the city of Calgary is definitely not endearing him to the fan base. But he is not one of the worst owners in the NHL. Francesco Aquilini, oh my God, this guy. Treatment of the fan base, second worst, 2.18 rating. Again, I don't know what this guy's end game is. Obviously, they mentioned Jim Benning. That was a complete and utter disaster. Trading away franchise pieces, uh, like Bo Horvat. Trading away JT Miller. There's not a lot of stability. Obviously, the whole Bruce Boudreau thing was a few years ago. Having him basically hanging out on a lifeline until they cut him and brought in Rick Tocchet was a terrible look. This is just an organization that sort of succeeds in spite of itself a lot of times, it feels like. I don't know what the heck Francesco Aquilini's vision is, and it's astounding that his team is like as successful as they have been. Like they're 23rd, 20th in regular season and playoff wins, despite the fact that they have one of the worst owners. But they do not pale in comparison to the worst owner in the NHL, who had one of the worst weekends, in my opinion, Terry Pegula, getting an F grade. Even Aquilini got a D plus. He fails. 32nd in regular season wins. 32nd in playoff wins because they have not been to the playoffs since he's owned the team. He is last in every fan base category. Willing to suspend, organizational stability, treatment of the franchise vision. Willing to suspend shocks me, considering this is the same guy who owns the Buffalo Bills and just gave Josh Allen like $750 million, I think, or something like that. But he can't bring himself to spend like $50 million on the fucking Sabres to finally be good for once in their damn lives. To his credit, spent on the Rasmus Dahlin extension. He seems like he's willing to spend for his own players like Tage Thompson. He's just not shown that he's willing to like invest in the team from what fans are saying. Organizational stability being the worst in the NHL, like, of course, they haven't made the playoffs. They've been running through awful general managers, awful head coaches. Lindy Ruff now it's so much of a stopgap for this franchise. They just do not have a direction, which also goes to the low franchise vision and the treatment of the fan base. Like, again, how is the guy who has turned Bill's Mafia into such not just a great experience for Buffalo fans, but like a heartwarming story for NFL fans, been so bad at making the Sabres like an interesting and attractive uh, team to root for or be a fan of? It's mind-boggling. He just does not hire the right people. He just does not have a good acumen for how to run this team. It almost makes his success running the Bills more impressive because he had to have just lucked out with Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott as the GM head coach tandem. I think honestly, Buffalo fans, your best hope is to pray that lightning strikes twice, because this guy just does not have any understanding of what it takes to run a good franchise. Question in the chat from Red Wings 01. How many top 10 picks have the Red Wings gone through and still can't get off the ground? Dude, it's got to be at least 5 or 6. They're going to have another one this year. I mean, assuming the lottery doesn't screw them. They've had 2 number 1 picks in the last since Pegula's owned the team. The only other team I think that has more is the Oilers. Now, they got lucky because one of those picks was Connor McDavid. But like, it's still, everybody's saying that the Sabres got a tank again. It's like they got number 1 picks with Dahlin and Power. Like, how many more chances do you get? At some point, you can't just say like, well, this next draft pick is going to be the one that gets us out of this. I'm sure of it. You're just at some point, and this is why I said before about the Sabres, and I'm going to say again when I do a how to fix the Sabres video, you got to make the moves to try and win now, because you haven't proven that you can build a team that wins. They are the equivalent, the NHL equivalent of the New York Jets. And the thing about the Jets that you can at least give them somewhat credit for, as opposed to the Sabres, is that when they thought that they had a chance to be good, they really went and took it. They traded for Aaron Rodgers, and obviously it was a complete disaster. But they at least tried to get out of being, a laughing stock. The Sabres, in my opinion, have not yet tried that. And they need an Aaron Rodgers type move, because if not, they're just going to continue to be shit. I don't know. So yeah, who's had the worst weekend? One candidate, in my opinion, Terry Pegula, being named the worst owner in the NHL. But we have some other folks who had really bad weekends, which is why I'm doing this stream, because I want to talk about all the people who had really bad weekends. And the first one I want to talk about, and I have to pause the video because my last stream got demonetized for showing this. Tomas Hertl in this game between the Vegas Golden Knights and the Buffalo Sabres. As you can see right here, Hertl passes up an empty net to try and get Eichel the goal, and then the Sabres tie it up. Hertl has the open net here right in front of him. He could go, take it, and score. What does he do instead? Tries to pass it back to Jack Eichel over here, give him the goal. Be unselfish, but what happens? Sabres recover it. They take it down. They score, win it in overtime. This is why they tell you, as even in youth hockey, you got an open shot, take it. Don't overpass. My old coach used to tell me, if you're between the dots and you've got a clear look at the net, you take the shot. It's never a bad shot if you've got a clean look and you're right on the net. If only Thomas Hertl had taken it, because the Vegas Golden Knights, I know they're comfortably in the playoffs, but they still have to secure their position. They're trying to win that division. They need the points. You can't be giving up points to the freaking Buffalo Sabres. So candidate, in my opinion, for worst weekend, not a winner, in my opinion. I think Pegula had a worse weekend than him. Let's move on next to our boy Connor Bedard, who, oh shoot, forgot to switch, but can't show this one either. Can't show the whole video, but Connor Bedard getting a misconduct of abusive, got a penalty for abusive officials, and nobody has any idea why. In the video, you can see he skates over, the ref goes over to him, they have a little word, and the ref skates off, and Bedard says something that might, like a lip reader would say, it's kind of like F you. But he gets a misconduct. I have no idea how this happened or why this happened, and nobody can explain why. Like, the NHL has to come out and explain to the fans like what exactly led to this, because I know Red Wings 01 saying Bedard was heated. I've seen players way more heated than this. I've seen coaches way more heated who do not get penalties, and yet he has a quick barb and is bitching and moaning. Like, I've seen Sidney Crosby be up in an official's face, yelling and screaming and bitching. And we have Bedard here on the bench, just making an under his breath, whatever remark. And he's getting a penalty. There needs to be consistency. I mean, Joe Sacco for the Bruins was up in arms and heated over the weekend. There's just no consistency in it, and it needs to be explained, because still I don't know anybody who has figured out exactly what it's from. And one comment in this thread that I actually saw, which was really eye-opening, it wasn't this one. I think it was, Xbox guy here saying, I feel like their coach should have gotten angry on the refs. And then somebody replied that it was down. It was this one. The Blackhawks didn't really protest. You'd figure if it was this week, Foligno would be animated talking to the ref afterwards. Somebody saying, our leadership is not good. Captain, coaches, barely the players. Nobody's sticking up for each other. That, to me, is the biggest indictment of all of the Chicago Blackhawks. This is an organization, like we talked about, right now they don't seem to have a vision or direction. If you have a culture where players are not sticking up for each other, where players are not getting animated, even though your season's basically over, even though you're not going to do very well, and a lot of these guys like Foligno might not be here next year, well, you just don't have those guys in your locker room. I talk about this all the time. Losing breeds losing. You have to learn to win in a way. You don't have these guys in the locker room in Chicago, and it's so disappointing. They need those guys. This is why in my How to Fix the Blackhawks series, I was like, go and get some guys who have won. Go get some guys who know how to win. You need guys who are not going to take this shit. Do you think that this sort of thing, if a young player got called for a kind of bullshit penalty, is going to fly in Carolina or Dallas or Washington? Hell no. You think Connor McDavid's going to take that if some young defenseman mouths off and gets a penalty, that he's just going to stand there? No, absolutely not. Chicago needs that. They absolutely need that, and they need that behind the bench too. I said in my video that I didn't think Anders Sorensen would be coming back, and I stand by that because of him not standing up for Bedard. But the terrible weekend for Bedard, who got a BS penalty that has not yet been explained. Yeah, he was heated for getting penalized, had the right to be. Yeah, absolutely. He should be heated. He should have been more heated, and it's disgusting that his coach, his other teammates, did not stand up for him. All right, and speaking of BS penalties, how about this one? Did y'all see this? Mike Matheson, right here, just standing there. This guy trips, falls over. Mike Matheson gets a penalty. How in the world do NHL officials call this as a penalty? I'll show again. Like he trips over him. Like it's such a basic concept in hockey. You own the space you're in. When you are standing somewhere, that is your space. If somebody impedes your space, that is on them. Like goaltender interference. If you're outside the crease and you're just standing there and a goalie comes into you and falls over, it's not goalie interference because you occupied that space. This guy skates by and falls. And it's I know that refs are going to get shit wrong all the time, but there are some, this is where I come down on the, they need to be able to review penalties because this is just not a penalty. It is such BS. And it's such a bad look for the game, especially considering that, in my opinion, the NHL is probably better officiated than the other three major sports, other than maybe basketball, in the sense that it's not, if you watch the NFL, there's always somebody coming down on the refs about something. If you watch the MLB, there are compilations of terrible, terrible strikes and balls being called. In hockey, though, generally you don't see a ton of just blatantly bad penalties like the Bedard one and like this. So bad weekend for Mike Matheson for getting this BS penalty, and a bad weekend for NHL officiating, who just decided that they were going to lose their brains and just call random penalties for no reason. Still not as bad of a weekend as Terry Pegula, though, in my opinion. But who had the worst weekend? Or not who had the worst weekend, but who had a bad weekend? San Jose Sharks. This poor one out for them. Eliminated from playoff contention. I love the top comment. If you just want us at our 1954 and 90, you don't want us at our 23, 48, and 11. I'm working on right now a video how to fix the San Jose Sharks, and going through their lineup, it's really surprising how optimistic I actually am about the San Jose Sharks. I think that they have a lot of pretty good pieces. They are lacking in some very obvious areas, those being defense and goaltending. But as far as forwards go, they've got some good solid pieces that they could potentially build around. They need a second line center, but their top six is not bad. Their bottom six could use another signing or two. And so, yeah, I'm a little bit bullish on the San Jose Sharks going into next year. I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs or anything like that, but I think they can be better. I think they're better than they are now. I like the direction of their organization. I like what Mike Greer's doing as their GM. They're going to get another top pick this year, and Celebrini is already looking like a really good pick. So if they just continue on this track, I think that they're a year or two away from contention. But for right now, poor one out for the Sharks. You smile, you son of a bitch. Blew up the gas tank. The Sharks are out of it. All right. Before we go, a couple of funny things that I wanted to talk about really quick. Ovi, as he gets to within 7 goals of tying Gretzky, 8 of passing, sent a side jersey to Pascal Leclerc, the goalie who he scored his first 2 NHL goals against. I was at this game. I remember this game. I remember his first 2 goals. The fact that he sent a signed jersey to Leclerc is pretty cool, because Leclerc is always going to be immortalized. The the first goalie that, one of the greatest hockey players ever scored against. And I think that's just really cool that he sent him that. The other one that I wanted to show from the Utah Hockey Club, in these troubling times where egg prices are going through the roof, good guy Mikhail Sergachev bringing eggs from his backyard chicken coop to the team. Obviously these guys can afford eggs, but that is just such a hockey player thing to do. Just like having a chicken coop and then just giving the eggs to the teammates. It's such a funny little story. It's such a good guy moment though from Sergachev. Just a funny ass thing. But yeah, that is who had the worst weekends in the NHL. I'm going to say it is still Terry Pegula, even though the Sharks got eliminated. But I'm going to try and do this every Monday, just a worst weekend, who had the worst weekend. And I would encourage people who want to watch, who can tell me like maybe their bad stories about incidents at games or anything like that. Go ahead and drop me a line for that, and maybe I'll read some of them in the next stream. But otherwise, just going to be bringing up who are the players who had terrible, shitty luck last weekend. So thanks everybody for stopping by, for joining. I'm going to try and do more of these streams, maybe once or twice. Try and do them every day during the week. But I will let you know for sure. Going to try and do them around this time, maybe a little earlier than this. But thank you all for watching. I'll catch you all next time. And new power rankings dropping tomorrow. So I'll see you then.